Welcome back in. It is the world famous, notorious, some would say infamous, Basketball by Association podcast. My name is Arky. Shea. That is Joel C. Cortez. Joel, you put the basketball in my association. How are you, sir?
Infamous, unfamous. It's all pretty much the same at this point. It's good to see you, buddy, and I'm happy to talk some NBA, and I'm happy to announce that this is episode 90 of Basketball by Association, which, I mean, let's be honest, that's an accomplishment for us here. And
yeah, it means we haven't quit.
We have not quit.
Most podcasts quit. Did you know that the statistic that most people who do podcasts it's somewhere like 80% don't go past like 20?
I did not know that, but it's not surprising. It's a lot of work.
Well, it's
a labor of love for sure.
Yeah, people just feel like if I can't make money immediately off of it, then I'm just going to give it up. But we got great content. Why would we just deny the content?
Right. I'm not here for the airplane loads of money that we receive every week. I'm here for the love of the game.
Because I would like you to share some of that with me if you wouldn't mind. Not all of it, just a little.
It's not in the contract. The airplane comes to me. No, anyway. Episode 90, there's only two guys in NBA history who have ever worn number 90, and they both have been within this millennium. One of whom is the OG for number 90, and in fact, he wore it for a total of 9 seasons with, by my count, and actually it's Basketball References count, 6 different teams. So he was committed to this number 90, and I've actually gained a lot of respect for him because he is a color commentator now. I was not a huge fan of him as a player, but having listened to him on Washington Wizards broadcasts over the last couple years, I got to say I've got a soft spot in my heart for this dude. I don't know if this narrows it down who it might be.
He had to play for the Wizards, right? If he's going to be on the commentary,
he last played for the Wizards in 2016. In fact, he had done 3 straight seasons with them.
Well, you did say millennium, so yeah, I guess.
It's been recent. He first wore number 90 with the Cleveland Cavaliers. That would have been a LeBron James version in 2005. So he was one of the early Cavs with LeBron and hung around long enough. So there are some clues. He did some time with the Chicago Bulls, Sacramento Kings, San Antonio Spurs, Dallas Mavericks, and Wizards. He was drafted by the Orlando Magic. He played with the Grizzlies. He did not wear 90 with either of those teams. This is a true journeyman. He's not one of the guys on the list of like 13 teams, but he's real close.
13 teams.
Because I think that's the record.
How many years?
Let's go look. Basketball Reference. Started in 2002 and actually was drafted by the Grizzlies, then played with the Magic. I had that flip-flop. He was done at age 34 in 2016. He played for the Grizzlies, Magic, Cavs, Bulls, Kings, Spurs, Mavericks, Clippers, Bucks, and Wizards. So maybe he is on that list. I got to look here. Is he on the...
Okay,
this is just great content while I sit here and count. No, he's 11 teams in.
I have a guess. Do you know where he played at college? Because I think this would help me.
He is a Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Oh, okay. What's his first name? Sorry.
And what's his last name?
I think it's something good. Something.
Yeah,
it's
Drew Gooden.
Drew Gooden. Yes.
Drew Gooden.
I remember Drew Gooden a lot from Kansas, but man, I didn't remember. Man,
he's been around. He's been around the block.
Yeah, that's not a career I remember a lot of in the NBA.
The nicknames are also fun. I wish I would have been doing this on earlier episodes when we went through, just to read through the ridiculous nicknames some of these guys have had. Drew Gooden has had the Big Drizzle, the Truth, which is ridiculous because there's only one, the Truth.
Yeah.
Rasheed Wallace. That's phenomenal.
I don't remember that one.
And Good and Plenty.
Oh, I remember Good and Plenty. I remember that because that was an easy one though. I remember that. I think he had that in college too. Good and Plenty.
Yeah, and here's the story behind number 90. He was number 0 when he was originally drafted. And then he wore number 9. He wore 0 3 other times in his career. but 90 is the one combining the 0 and the 9 that he wore most often. So my guess is he went to a couple of teams where 9 was not available and he didn't want to go back to 0.
I do love the way you introduced that. Like, here's the story. Like, it was going to be like one of his best friends died in 1990 and he dedicated his career. It's like,
it's not a Taj Gibson story. No, it's not a Taj Gibson story where he's got the 70 number for his area code or whatever it is.
No, it's well, he wore this number and another time he wore this number. And finally he was just like, screw it, let's combine them. Let's just push them right together.
But I mean, there's got to be something when you get up into these upper echelon numbers like we have been for the last 30 numbers or so, 30 episodes. Once you get past 50, I mean, you're into uncharted territory where there's not a lot of NBA history with any of those numbers unless you're going back to the 50s, and most modern players have no recollection or care about anybody who played back then, as do most fans. It's just a different world. So it's got to be something meaningful. Some of the Euro guys come in and they get those upper numbers because I think there's more significance, back where they played, and that's not out of the ordinary for somebody to have a 70 or an 80, number on their jersey. But we're getting down to a lot of these numbers where it's only one, maybe 2, 3 guys that have ever worn that in NBA history. So Drew Gooden and the other guy, in case you were really super interested.
I was hankering. Who's the other guy?
Could have been Amir Johnson from the Boston Celtics, wore it for 2 seasons, but sorry, Amir. Drew is the OG when it comes to 90. And again, I've really actually enjoyed his color commentary, and I would not have been able to predict that as a player when he did interviews and stuff like that. But he's good.
Yeah, I know the name, not the jersey number association, but that's cool. So this is the Drew Gooden episode. Did not foresee this.
Nay. This is the Good and Plenty episode.
Oh, sorry, the Good and Plenty.
There will be plenty of goodness.
Well, let's get on some of that good plenty. And even though it happened a few minutes ago as of sort of recording, actually, you know what? Let's start with one of the most recent. Klay Thompson's back.
Yes.
Huh? Klay Thompson is back. In fact, did you see that? Who was it? Draymond? Was it Draymond Green that came on the court to start?
I did. I watched the entire game. Actually.
Okay, good. I watched a lot of it. Yeah. So he came on the court just to honor the fact that Klay was playing, and it was like, all right, I'm hurt. I'm not doing this.
You know what was even cooler though is that they had talked to the Cavaliers ahead of time that this was going to go on. It was a home game. They had planned it. Draymond really wanted to be out there, so Cleveland won the tip, and they waited with the ball for Draymond to come over and commit the foul so that he could be checked out. Like that is pretty cool sportsmanship for the other team to be like, look, it's not going to hurt us in any way to stand here. If we win the tip, you're going to come foul us. If the Warriors had won the tip, they were going to call an immediate timeout and just sub Draymond out. So it doesn't hurt Cleveland in any way. You could see, especially some of the hardcore old time gotta compete at all time type of guys when we're like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But it's like, come on, Draymond wants to be out there. This is significant for a guy who's been out 2 seasons. You can call that touchy-feely if you want, but honestly, watching that game and as excited as the crowd was, excited as Klay was, excited as his teammates were, and for him to hit his first shot on the running layup and to have a relatively, very productive night. It sounds cliche, but that's honestly one of the reasons why you watch sports, is for moments like that. It really was cool.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that the NBA let Draymond come out with like a suit on and do the tip that way. I was like, wow, that's wild. Just let a guy come on with a suit and then do the foul, and then, but obviously it didn't happen. But the weird thing is,
he was in his uniform, but not available beyond the first 5 seconds of the game.
But I do think, and he's dealing with it's a hamstring or a thigh. Which one?
He's got a calf injury.
Calf,
it's a strain where he could play, but there's no sense in doing that right now, and exacerbating that into a 3-week injury when it probably needs a few more days of rest.
So let's sort of talk about it just for a couple minutes, because there's not a ton to get into as far as the overall game itself. Warriors end up beating the Cavs by double digits, pulling away. Really, and I think the third quarter is where they really pulled away in that game. And then that's where I balked on it. But Klay Thompson in that game, not bad. 17 points in the game. Played 20 minutes, which was sort of the number I was interested to see how much time he was going to get in his first game back, which 20 minutes is not nothing.
And 17 points in 20 minutes is where it really stands out, because he could have played 35 and 17 would have been, a ho-hum fine enough night for Klay Thompson.
Yeah, it was like Steve Kerr has sort of been on this thing, like he sort of loves his players and stuff like that. Like, so when Klay Thompson was getting ready to come back, Steve Kerr always sort of said, hey, listen, don't even ask the question. If Klay's healthy, he's starting. Okay, so like, let's just not get into that kind of thing, right? And you can manage the minutes however you want. But what did you think of his re-debut? 2 years. It's been 2 years since we've seen him play on the court, and he played really efficiently and really well for Golden State as they get another win.
First of all, just happy to see him. I mean, that goes without saying, but it's worth saying again and again.
Yeah, because it's been so long, and you literally don't know what you're going to get. Like, you didn't know if he was just going to be like hobbling or limping, or like I'd expect they wouldn't put him out there if it was that bad, but you just don't know if it's like just completely different Klay or what.
The explosiveness was not there. The fast twitch was not there. I know he had a really impressive dunk for like his second basket, where he drove down the lane and was able to kind of let the defender fly by, find a seam. The defense was short to rotate. He got over and threw it down, landed a little awkwardly, which was kind of a hold your breath moment for everybody, but he landed awkwardly, stuck the landing. Everybody was, obviously pumped up. And I think that even more than the layup was, okay, he's back. He can handle himself out there type of play. I'm sure he's going to be sore today, playing even 20 minutes and scoring those 17 points. It took him a little while to get the jumper. You saw a couple of ill-advised fadeaways where he was forcing it. The legs were not underneath him in order to get the arc on the fadeaway and the distance that he needed, but he knocked down, a handful of threes. He did get a couple of the fadeaways to go. He did run off a pin down and score. So you saw the ability to do Klay things, just the rust is there. He's not explosive. He was a -2 while he was on the floor. That is significant on the positive side. He didn't get killed while he was out there, right? He did get blown by a couple of times. And it's like I talked about last week. The lateral movement to play good defense is going to be what comes last, I think, for Klay. That's going to be the work in progress all year. So he didn't get killed while he was out there. But in a game that the Warriors won by 14 points, for him to be -2 does, I think, speak to a little bit of the rust that, yes, he was able to put up 17 points in a short period of time. The Warriors struggled a little bit defensively while he was out there. Sometimes that was directly him. Other times it was just poor rotations, and the Cavs scored, and the fact that you've got a guy who literally has to get his sea legs back on the defensive end is going to be significant for them. But so far, so good. They are deep enough to insulate him now, where he can play 20 minutes a game until he's comfortable to do more. The big part is after he gets a couple of these games under his belt and that soreness starts to set in, do you have any of those conditioning type of injuries coming back, the little nagging things that then take him out for a few games? If I'm the Warriors, I treat that with kid gloves, even though it's going to frustrate Klay Thompson to hell if he's got to sit, with a sore ankle. But you do that. You absolutely do that because they're deep enough, and you want him there. Even if it's 25 minutes a game, you want him there by the playoffs because of the threat that he poses. The guy scored 17 points in 20 minutes in the first game back and was a gravity threat. And the Warriors, who have not shot the ball well over the last few games, in fact, they've all collectively hit a slump in the last 3-4 games from outside. They need that. They can use that. So you got to just keep them upright and take it easy here.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you say. Like, I'm interested to see what is minutes and how we sort of looking as we go over the next month. I think the All-Star break is right around Valentine's Day per usual. I think it's right after Valentine's Day.
3 weeks from now, where is he at?
Yeah,
that's the big question, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Like, is this team struggling with him on the court, or is he struggling, I should say, on the court, like to keep up with the plus minus? Is it that lateral movement again? It's also had to be some butterflies for the guy too, right? Like coming back after 2 years. I mean, like you have no idea. And sure, it's the Cavaliers, not the best team, but not the worst team.
No,
sure you're doing it at home, so that's the extra pressure for you too. Like it's just, it's a lot for a very concentrated time for you to get your return.
And I will say this, there was some fun symbolism in the opponent being the Cavaliers, right? Because that was the Warriors' big, at least NBA Finals rival during their heyday, during Klay's heyday. And so much has changed. Only Kevin Love remains on that Cavaliers team from the original ones that the Warriors battled. It's a sign of how much time has passed. And yet the Cavaliers are no pushover. They've been battling all season. It was a tough game until that third quarter when the Cavs just went cold and could not hit any shots. The Warriors, to their credit, played good defense throughout the game, even when Klay was in and they maybe struggled a little bit. But, Kevon Looney pulls down 18 boards and you hold an opponent to 82 points when Draymond Green doesn't play, when Andrew Wiggins has a super quiet night with only 10 points. Those are, again, signs that this is a really good Warriors team, because it's not like they were going out and playing Houston or Detroit or one of these teams where you would think that would make sense to bring Klay back against, New Orleans, somebody that really struggles, but Cleveland's going to fight you, and they're big and they cover a lot of ground with that length they got out there. So this was not a pushover game by any means. The Warriors had to legit go out and win that one.
No, you're right. And I tell you this, if you wanted him to come back, it may have been the best opportunity to come back. If you didn't want to do it Thursday, which I guess was the Pelicans, a game they lost, by the way.
And rested just about everybody,
Yeah. The Grizzlies, the Bucks, the Bulls, the Timberwolves, who are no slouch right now, they're your next opponents. So if this was the time frame you wanted to put, it's not the worst sort of situation to sort of put them in. Then you got the Pistons, but I mean, you would have had to wait another 8 days from even today to been able to do that. So it's not bad.
Yeah, you get him out there, you see how he feels afterwards. If he's dealing with soreness, he's dealing with that stuff, you let him rest a game, and it literally comes back to one game at a time, I think, right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Speaking of one game at a time, there is literally no other guy that could be one game at a time, quite like Kyrie Irving is. But he was.
Can we just make that his new nickname? One game at a time.
I mean, it's completely fair, because they go to Indiana, he gets to play, and then they come back home to Brooklyn, and you can't have him. You're like, it's just all right. Well, this is fun for a minute, but anyway. Kyrie, a little less than a week ago, January the 5th to be exact. That was Wednesday, right? That was Wednesday. Goes to Indiana, takes the first shot of the game, misses, but not here to make fun of Kyrie, because Kyrie looked like vintage Kyrie. Like, Kyrie looked really, really good. He didn't look out of shape. It didn't look like he's lost a step. He looked good, and I think he went for 22 points in that game. But I think the number that surprised me the most was 32 minutes right out the gate on the road. Like, Joe, I don't know if you know this. They play 48. So, like, that is a significant chunk of time for him to play for his first game back. It tells me that the dude's been responsible. He's kept in shape. He's kept himself ready for the time it was for him to come back. And that team didn't look great early, got down by 19 against the Pacers, but with Kyrie, they came all the way back. And ended up winning that game by 8. Doesn't matter who the Pacers are. You get down 19 and come all the way back still. I mean, that's a good night. And Kyrie looked really, really good. I was a little surprised by the time he spent on the court and how good he looked when he was back on the court immediately too.
Yeah, it was the difference between you look at Klay's return and Kyrie's, and you see an injury versus a non-injury. Because Klay, we talked about the rust. Like, the pop isn't there yet. You can see that the spirit is willing, but the body's not quite ready. But it'll get there. With Kyrie, you're absolutely right. The quickness, the pop off of a dribble, the lift, it all seemed to be there right away, as if he had not, missed a beat. The timing with teammates was a little bit off. The recognition of, hey, I'm going to drive and get into my one-on-one package versus, moving the basketball, that wasn't there, but that part's to be expected. But physically, on the offensive end, Kyrie looked just fine. And you're right, that there is a compliment to be paid there of a guy that clearly has stayed ready and has stayed in game shape, because Think of how how James Harden showed up at the beginning of the season, was dealing with injury, yes, but this is not the first time that we've had out of shape Harden show up and work his way into a season. Shaq was notorious for that. Jokic has gotten himself in trouble with that a couple of times. Luka Doncic has gotten himself in trouble with that a couple of times. So for Kyrie Irving, in the questionable mental state that we've all wondered about, to go, Ed, is he really committed to this team? Where's he at? Is he just at home pouting? There had to have been work to go in to stay in that kind of shape, and hats off to him for doing that. Defensively, again, this is where Kyrie's never been a good defender, unlike Klay Thompson. You saw him get hit on screens and just die sometimes. You saw him rotate poorly at times. That's all to be expected.
But that's Kyrie. Like that's not.
It is, and if he's motivated enough to stay in shape, then hopefully he's motivated now that he's back with the team as much as he can be, to get dialed into the game plan a little bit more, to just compete on that end. But Kyrie's role at this point, honestly, is not going to be that different than what Patty Mills does. Patty Mills' job for the Nets is to come in and be a flamethrower and just chuck as many shots as he can, make the right play, yes. But if you got a shot, you have an enormous green light if you're Patty Mills, because Kevin Durant and James Harden need a break at some point. Somebody has to take shots. And so Kyrie Irving really has the exact same role. He's a different player than Patty Mills, who's a dribble and shoot off the pick type of guy. And Kyrie is obviously a lot more diverse in what he can do. But the Nets, you saw it against the Pacers. They are the best equipped team in the league to go one-on-one with their stars. Harden, Durant, and Kyrie are some of the best one-on-one players, not only of our era, but ever. And you've got all three of them. The nice thing about that group is Kyrie and Harden and Durant have never been unwilling passers. They have always been guys. Kyrie's probably the weakest link out of that. His assist totals have never been where you kind of expect for a point guard who handles the ball that much. But he's never been a selfish guy about like just holding on to the ball forever. You think of like when Carmelo Anthony would get himself into trouble for over isolating and that sort of thing. That's never been the case with those three. So yeah, they're going to set up into one-on-ones a lot. That's going to be Kyrie's game right now. And I honestly think that's the best way to go with Kyrie. Let him go one-on-one, because it allows Durant and James Harden to just take a play off, whether it's on the bench or standing there watching him do his thing. Let some of the other guys cut. We just saw DeAndre Bembry scored 12 points in that game against the Pacers. A lot of that was off of backdoor cutting. Nick Claxton got a little bit of that too. Let those guys move. When Joe Harris comes back, which should be in a couple of weeks, let him move off those screens. Let Patty Mills run off it and save Durant and Harden for when you need it. I look at Kyrie Irving right now, not as a third star, but as a very overqualified middle reliever. And teams need a good one. I mean, teams need a really good middle reliever to come in and eat some innings when you're in trouble. And I think Irving can do that as long as he holds his own on that defensive end too.
Yeah, and I would say like not even necessarily just eat the innings, but be really good in those innings that he's in, to really be able to keep the other team off balance. And, you can even go on the plus side with him on the court. It's, when you talk about putting your starters in there, the greatest thing in the world it could be is if you had a set of starters and they come out and your next five up, if you have, so to speak, can be on the plus side too, while your starters, rest. Like if that's something you can do, great. Kyrie is sort of be a really good guy like that. And finally, Kyrie gets to get back on the court tonight at Portland tonight. Mm-hmm. They got back-to-back road games. Portland, I think Wednesday's at Chicago. So you go from an interesting test in Indiana to two more other interesting tests. But again, more so, you get to see him back on the court again, get a little more now back-to-back reps with games with his teammates, which will be the first time he gets to do that this season.
Two quick things. Kyrie Irving was clearly more comfortable shooting off the dribble in that first game back, which would make sense if you're working out by yourself. And sure, I'm sure he's got somebody kicking him the ball and all that sort of thing too. But it's not the same. It's clear that having worked out individually a lot, you're going to be more comfortable off the dribble than catch and shoot. But Kyrie's always been a very solid catch and shoot three-point shooter. The Nets, especially without Joe Harris, are going to need that. Patty Mills is a guy who can catch and shoot, but is more comfortable with 1-2 dribbles coming off a pin down screen or coming off a quick dribble off the wing to shoot his threes. So Kyrie can give them that different look that Kevin Durant, good catch and shoot player, obviously. When Harden is kicking it out, it just adds that other layer. And the other thing I want to add is not even for the Nets, it's for the Pacers. Can we just give a shout out that Lance Stevenson is back in the NBA, back on the Indiana Pacers where he started his career. This is actually his third stint there. And he scored 30 points off the bench in that game against Brooklyn. They did lose, but you talk about Klay with the 17 points in 20 minutes. Lance Stevenson comes back into the NBA, 30 points in 32 minutes. He also had to guard Durant a lot that night, which is a lot to be asking for a guy who's been out of the league for over a year. Stevenson was -6 overall. And had that tough night trying to guard Durant. Durant's size over him was clear.
But they're not in the position of being up 19 without him. He goes 20 in the first quarter. I think becomes the first NBA player to do that.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, off the bench, 20 points in the first quarter. It's a pretty rare stat to be able to get to anyway. So.
And he gave Pacers fans something to have a standing ovation about because they were jacked when he was in the game and doing his thing. And it's been kind of a ho-hum few seasons for the Pacers. So it was kind of cool just to see them have that moment where, I mean, Stevenson's best years came in a Pacers uniform easily. You think of those Danny Granger, Paul George teams that were fighting the Heat, Lance Stevenson blowing in LeBron's ear. Like, that's that guy.
How about that being your calling card for the rest of your career? That's what you're known for, despite being a really good NBA player. I do want to mention this before we move on. As far as the Nets are concerned, Kyrie can only play in the road games right now. So we talked about, I think last week, how advantageous this next month or so is going to be because of the number of road games they're going to get compared to home games going into the All-Star break. Well, let's just, for the next couple of weeks, here's what they're doing. So tonight, road, home, road, home, road. A lot of opportunity for Kyrie to sort of get back into a rhythm with this team and sort of figure this out. And that's, that's heading into the All-Star break. Actually, a few games still before the All-Star break. But it's still very, very, very good news if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan, which I am not. I am not. I am a opposite of them fan. So just
what do you think is more likely? Because I think there is a likelihood now either way. What's more likely, that New York and the city of New York City itself eases the rules and Kyrie suddenly gets to play in home games, or that Kyrie, having given it some time and getting reintegrated with the team and maybe seeing that he's having fun in the road games and is badly needed by this team, that he decides to get vaccinated after all? What do you think is more likely?
50.001% chance the vaccination.
Okay.
But it's like, I really don't think either one are happening. Now with the uptick in cases, and New York's one of those hardo areas that's that's been this way the whole time. They've not relented on that, so to speak. And I don't think Kyrie's sort of going to change. I think Kyrie's just going to be Kyrie the rest of the way. And as much as I hate on Kyrie, and I do for obvious reasons. I mean, he's good for the team. He clearly, didn't show up 10 pounds overweight to the game. Like, he kept ready for the opportunity, which was, if I didn't hate him, heartening to see.
You could give some begrudging respect there
for the bad teammate moments that he's had. That was a good teammate moment, and that's, I don't know necessarily if you can qualify just as a good teammate moment, or more of like he really likes basketball. Like, no one's ever said he doesn't really like basketball. Like, he's a basketball player. Like, I just don't know how much he cares about anyone else's opinion on anything, really. So, outside of that, very, very just minor percent chance he would do the vaccine. But
can I give begrudging respect to New York's other team real quick? Because I've been hating on Tom Thibodeau for 2-3 episodes now in a row, and I just noticed something in prepping for the show. This is totally off script here. But the Knicks are 10th in three-pointers attempted on the year and 11th in three-point percentage. That coming from a Tom Thibodeau team, somebody who, is notorious for not changing, not adjusting, that sort of thing. I know the wins haven't been there, although they're like 6-4 in their last 10, something like that. But I'll give some begrudging respect that Thibodeau actually maybe sort of has kind of adjusted at least a little bit. For them to be sniffing the top 10 in either of those categories is actually a really big deal. So just wanted to throw that out there and show that I'm unbiased when it comes to recognizing some things with Thibodeau.
Well, we appreciate that, even though he hasn't played Kemba Walker in like 6 games or something like that. Still, we'll not be able to figure that out. If the team is a riddled with COVID, you don't get to play Kemba. That's fine, no matter how many points. We'll just take the 25-point losses to Boston. How's that? 2 days after beating. What? Okay, I'm over it. Whatever. I'm over it.
You split it. You split the home and home with them.
I listen for it to come down to a buzzer beater, right? Even though you should have been able to sink the free throws. Thanks, Julius Randle, for flipping the fans off. That helped.
We've all been there with Knicks fans. Come on now.
And for it to come down to the buzzer, which was an exciting moment. I was just like, dude, they're gonna blow this, aren't they? And then who was it? Tatum that hits the tying the jumper to where it was like a second and a half. You're like, okay, this is suck. And then you get the game winning 3 off the backboard, solid. And then the next time you play the exact same team, you score like 60 points or something. Like
you had a couple fewer players than the first time you played them because of COVID stuff. But
the Grizzlies are beating teams by 75 without players. Okay, like I don't like it's not just.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to them in a couple minutes here too. We'll rattle through quickly. I know we got some All-Star stuff and some awards and things like that. But
okay, well, how about you start off the All-Star stuff, because I want to look at the awards in just a second. So
okay, so All-Star voting right now is the usual amount of ridiculousness.
Yes.
That LeBron James leads the Western front court. LeBron has had a fine season. LeBron will be an All-Star.
And he's been hot recently, really recently.
He has, and I've got no real problem with that. It's kind of expected. But why is Carmelo Anthony in the top 10?
Oh, come on.
Why
is Carmelo Anthony in the NBA?
When you talk about big market bias and you just see the size of the fan bases, this is All-Star voting is one of the things that sort of explains that. Like, Carmelo Anthony doesn't belong anywhere near that list whatsoever. You can make the case that Andrew Wiggins is too high at number 4, that Draymond's a little high at 5. Towns probably should be higher, though he's missed some games in there, I understand. Klay Thompson right now, the Klay Thompson who just came back, is 4th in guard voting in the West.
Hey, this is who we want to see, man.
Russell Westbrook is sitting on the list at all. This is just wrong.
Oh my God.
Wrong.
I saw a meme last night of just it's a joke with Russell Westbrook looking awkwardly to the side and LeBron James sitting on the bench with the stat sheet. And then the joke read something like Russell Westbrook hoping that LeBron doesn't see his stats from that Memphis Grizzlies game. Again, though, Laker fans, man,
it's hippy dippy baloney, to quote Ron Burgundy. I know the Pelicans suck, but with the numbers that they've put up, Jonas Valanciunas, Brandon Ingram deserve to be in the front court voting in the top 10. And if you're not putting them there, you're not paying attention at all. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Anthony Edwards.
I love
those
Shea
two guys.
That dude deserves to be on this list.
They belong in the backcourt in the West.
Yeah.
Outside of that, there's not a lot of egregious oversights. I think in the East is where the West was, why are these guys on the list, but I don't have a ton of good replacements for them. The East, it's less, why is so-and-so on the list, and more so, why isn't this guy? So you look at the East list, LaMarcus Aldridge is sitting in 9th right now in front court voting in the Eastern Conference. That is worth me swearing a whole bunch on this show, and it's family friendly. I'm not going to do it, but inside I am. Bam Adebayo should be on the list, except that he's hardly played. So also there's my 2 guys who got to be off in the top 10 from the front court. Backcourt, Derrick Rose doesn't belong in 7th.
Hey.
Tyler Hero, that's
hey,
being
easy.
real generous to young Tyler, who has not had a terrible season, but I'm not sure belongs there. Like, let's just... LaMarcus Aldridge is sitting above Nick Vucevic in voting in the front court in the Eastern Conference. That's, again, it's just wrong. Like, Bradley Beal deserves to be higher, even though he hasn't played as much. Fred VanVleet deserves to be on that list. Pascal Siakam probably hasn't played enough, but deserves to be on there over LaMarcus Aldridge any day, every day. I would put Cole Anthony or Jeremy Grant or Julius Randle, who doesn't appear on the list, above Tyler Hero, and certainly above Bam, and certainly above LaMarcus Aldridge and Derrick Rose as well. Like, there's some clear glaring oversights, and again, you hope that the coaches will sort that out. But it just, again, it shows that big market bias.
I bet the coaches look at these lists and just like, I guess hi. Like, what are you? I know some of you got to be able to have to be on here just because of the fan voting, but
it's like that exchange, that constant exchange on Arrested Development between Oscar and Lucille. You're high. You're drunk. Yes.
Yeah. How Carmelo Anthony, for example, would have 100,000 more votes right now than Rudy Gobert is dumb. It's just dumb.
Because there's more people in LA than the entire state of Utah, and it is what it is. You got to give it to the fans, and there's Lakers fans all over the country for Kobe-sized reasons, and that you can't get around it. But if anyone ever claims there isn't a big market bias in the league, the numbers are there to support that, and media does that too. When I was with Bleacher Report, I saw the readership numbers, and it's insane how high Lakers stuff and Knicks stuff gets. So for the rest of us in smaller market teams, when you sign on to an ESPN or a Bleacher Report or whatever, like, why is it yet another Lakers or Knicks article? It's because they don't care about you, small market people. They don't care about your team. You don't have enough readers. It is the numbers game, and that's why we get the constant Lakers rumors and Knicks rumors and all that crap shoved down our throat, which... fun if you're a fan of those teams, but I think it does wear down on small market fans after a while, where they go, if I'm a fence person, I don't pay as much attention because nobody ever pays attention to my team or my good players unless they want to poach them, and then it's in a rumors article that Anthony Edwards is getting traded to the Knicks for a copy machine. So
okay, hold on, are you breaking something right now? Because I'd gladly take that trade. Like, I don't know.
James Dolan is very fond of that copy machine. It was given to him by the Eagles in 1987. It's not going anywhere. It's a very functioning Xerox.
That's why
it prints in 2 different colors. He's keeping it. All of his best fedora pictures came off of that.
Okay, so that's what I was hoping for. Yeah. Well, this is why the NBA gives fans a double vote day. It's like, hey, all right, if you want your vote to count twice, why don't you do it this day? And then the Lakers fans still vote.
Right.
You're just like,
give them credit. They're passionate. I will never fault Lakers or Knicks fans for being passionate about their team. There's many of them, and they're obnoxious sometimes, but they certainly love the Lakers and the Knicks. Even when, especially for the Knicks, they've been unlovable, but the Lakers went through their time of being unlovable too, and I can respect that.
Well, the Knicks only have one guy on this list in the top 10 in the front or backcourt.
Yeah, and it's Derrick Rose, and that's disrespectful to Julius Randle. Like,
it is. Julius Randle has still been the straw that stirs the drink for the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't have a good Julius Randle, you don't have a good night for the Knicks. And it's just a fact. I don't know what you want me to say. He's the backbone of that team. If there were any complaints I'd have about the All-Star voting, it's that it's not just given to me and you, and let us pick the teams or the players that deserve.
Because then we'd get it right.
Yeah, because I wouldn't say LeBron doesn't deserve. LeBron's got a chance. LeBron's got a legitimate chance right now at the scoring title. Right, he's still he can very easily get there.
I don't have a problem with him being first. It's inevitable.
Anthony Davis being 6 is like, okay, how many? Like, okay, Do you only know like 3 front court players to like be able to vote for? Like
some fans do.
Yeah, it's like
That's all they got.
okay, fair. I would say Karl Anthony Towns definitely deserves to be there above Anthony Davis right now. Absolutely, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about voting right now. We don't know what's going to happen in March or April, so
Right.
I would argue very much that Carmelo's, even though I'm a Carmelo lover, I am a defender of Carmelo Anthony. Even to his Denver days, does not in 2022 deserve to be on this list right now. Deandre Ayton is criminally low with only 175,000 votes or whatever.
He has missed a lot of games with injury, so even with him, it's like
it doesn't seem like it matters. It doesn't seem like games being missed matters. And
well,
we want to talk about
Klay Thompson, who's 4th on the list.
I was going to get to it, but if you want to ask me who I'd rather see, which is what the All-Star game to me is, like who do I want to see there? 1,000 times DeAndre Ayton over Carmelo Anthony in 2022. Yeah. Absolutely, it's not even close. Not even close. In fact, Carmelo Anthony would opt out of this game. Actually, he might not. He'll probably show up just because, like, he's like, this is probably my last run.
You know what's weird? There are more legit NBA All-Star caliber players in the Eastern Conference this year than the West. Like, there is more of a field to choose from. The West seems like it's pretty clear cut, but even if you just look at the scoring list, it's heavily slated to the East, and the guys in the West are either a shoe-in or are enough on the fringe that they're probably not going to get it. Like Brandon Ingram and Jonas Valanciunas both statistically deserve to be all-stars coming off the bench. They do over some of the ones that we had mentioned before. But outside of those two, I don't have a lot of Western Conference guys. Maybe De'Aaron Fox, but he got off to a super slow start. The Kings are not good. Andrew Wiggins, again, I'll be fine if he makes it. He's been a good glue guy for the Warriors. I think his usage is going to go through the floor now that Klay's back, and he's going to have to adjust. They're just a bunch of the Grizzlies who are playing well. Like, obviously, Ja Morant deserves to be in. Maybe Jaren Jackson Jr., but the stats really aren't there, and the Grizzlies have been such an egalitarian attack that you're not going to get a clear-cut guy. Like Desmond Bane has been the second-best three-point shooter in the league this year, folks. You know, besides Steph Curry, it's been Desmond Bane. Nobody knows about that. But he doesn't do a ton of other things. Dylan Brooks hasn't played enough. DeAnthony Melton has been up and down. So they just spread out that attack so much that there's no standout guy besides Ja, and that is what it is. So you just don't have a lot of names in the West, whereas the East is loaded with guys. Cole Anthony, Jeremy Grant, I mentioned some of them, you know, LaMelo Ball. How is Domantas Sabonis not on the list in the Eastern Conference front court right now? Like, it's ridiculous. I get Chris Middleton hasn't played that much and so forth, but there's just, as usual, there's some glaring oversights. I get that Pascal Siakam has had some narrative around him right now that he's been a little bit of a disappointment since Kawhi left. Some of that is true. He's been injured a little bit, but statistically, still better than LaMarcus Aldridge. Like, not even close. And his Raptors team is doing just fine for where they're at. Like,
that's okay. Let me before we get out of here, let me ask you a couple of questions going I guess as of January 10, which is when we're recording this. I don't want to look at like all of our award winners, you know, because I think we'll be able to get to that during the All-Star break, and I think that's a good time to sort of, you know, we're well past the halfway point as far as games played and stuff there.
Most teams are hitting 40 games right around this week.
Actually, no, right now, it'll be the halfway point. But like, I think the All-Star break is a nice time to sort of take a break and be like, all right, what we got coming up here. But I did want to ask you 3 awards questions if you were to give them right now. And to me, they're the 3 most important questions, the awards. First, give me who you think as of right now, January 10th, is the coach of the year.
It's got to be Billy Donovan for the Bulls,
doesn't it?
Right?
Like who else do you even consider?
Steve Nash gets some consideration. Because of the revolving door that's been there. Monty Williams gets...
But, like, who hasn't dealt with the revolving door, right? Like,
it's true. It's true.
And Billy Donovan dealt with, like, a ridiculous revolving door, like, where they were talking like high school players they were pulling up to the roster at some point, trying to just fill games.
Right. Stacey King was getting it out of the broadcast booth to come back down.
Can you give us 10? Can you just give us 10 minutes? That's all we're really asking.
Yeah, Steve Kerr and Monty Williams will get some nods there because their teams have been so good. Monty Williams has done another really good job for a Suns team that still feels like it's overachieving. At some point, we got to stop saying that, but still feels like it's overachieved this year.
Yeah, the 30-9, tied for best record in the league.
Yeah, and Nash has certainly, if you talk revolving door and distractions, the Nets have been way near the top of the list. He gets a little bit less consideration because of how much sheer talent the Nets have. So it's like, yeah, you got problems, but those are rich people problems there, son. So yeah, it's Billy Donovan in clear cut, but I think any of the top 4 teams overall, the top 2 in each conference, those are the obvious picks right now.
Can I add an outside one?
Yeah.
Can I add Taylor Jenkins to that list?
I thought that's who you were going to go with. Yeah, absolutely. And in the same way, I would have put JB Bickerstaff in there with the Cavs, but I think they're going to slide now with Ricky Rubio being out a little bit. But if they are top 6 at the end of the year, Bickerstaff has to at least get an honorable mention. And Taylor Jenkins, I mean, I called it. I said in preseason, I said the Grizzlies are going to win that division.
Yeah, well, look at them. Look at them. Like, you're right on. They've won 9 straight games. They are on fire. Not just the 9 straight. They won like 16 of 17 or something like that. They are just
and revolving door.
Right,
they've done it with Ja, without Ja. Like, they are a very well-disciplined unit that understands their identity, that plays within themselves.
They're 3 games out of the first spot, I think, in the West, and considering
it's very Spurs-like. It's very Spurs-like as far as guys just coming in, filling a role, not making too big of a deal of it. But one thing I do love about these Grizzlies is somehow they have retained that kind of nasty chip on your shoulder. You're not going to push us around type of mentality that the grit and grind era before them had. It still is there, but they get out and they run, they play better offense, they're more exciting. They've got certainly more weapons than those old teams did, where it was really 3 guys, right? It was Conley, it was Zach Randolph, and it was Marc Gasol. And then after that, you were in big trouble trying to find offense. They can spread this out to these Grizzlies, so I'm a really big fan of what they've done and a huge fan of Taylor Jenkins too. I think the Bulls, being the bigger market, sitting in first place, they've got the narrative for right now. But you know what? If Memphis, they're 3.5 games out of first place in the Western Conference. If they somehow sneak into the top 2, top 3, and Chicago hits a little bit of a lull, this could change real quick. So I think you're right on that Jenkins is in that field.
I think he also just got COVID, or just got put in the protocol.
Yeah,
so that may affect him a little bit. Not my voting. Like, again, it's voting as of today, and the Grizzlies aren't playing as we're recording this, so I still get to. And by the way, I guess we'll talk about it briefly coming up with the team. Ja Morant's insane right now. Ja Morant did you see the block he had against the Lakers last night? Like, I didn't know when he was going to stop going up. Like, there's a
neither did LeBron, right?
Yeah. There's a GIF I saw of I guess sort of facing them coming toward the goal. And like, you just sort of see out of nowhere, like, Ja Morant bounce up and then just keep going. Like, and he gets it with both hands.
Yeah.
Like, dude, man. Like, not his scoring's insane right now. His defense is really
his 3-point shooting has improved to where it needed to be. Like, it's still not a pretty shot, but he's confident when he shoots it, and there's enough mechanical soundness there for it to be repeatable,
and that
which is really impressive.
That dude is a dog for that team. Like, the guy like he fits Memphis. Like, they're in simpatico as far as that city, the style of play that they have, and they're scoring 1 billion points. Like 1 billion points. And I'm not exaggerating. Literally, Joel, 1 billion points. They beat the Lakers 1 billion to like 94 last night or whatever.
He is reminiscent of some of the other really great franchise point guards that have come through and have just kind of knocked your socks off with their athleticism. You think Derrick Rose, young Russell Westbrook, young John Wall, De'Aaron Fox, when you really get a chance to watch them. Some of these guys where it's, Damian Lillard is really good, but it's not blazing athleticism with Lillard. It's a combination of so many things. Morant is blazing athleticism, but I'm hopeful because the other guys that I mentioned, like Rose had his injury issues, Wall has had his injury issues. When you talk about guards who play with so much torque and force. They've had a shorter shelf life on their legs. Ja has dealt with some injury issues, but a lot of times it's been takeoffs and landings that have hurt him. And that was a problem for Derrick Rose, you remember back in the day too. Like he would just launch himself. So Morant's got to be careful with that. But I don't see, and I cross my fingers, knock on wood, I don't see the same sort of torque issues that I did with Rose and Wall, and even Russell Westbrook, who had his fair share of injuries, but has remained durable overall. So you're hopeful for a long career. And Ja, yeah, he's just got that chip on his shoulder. He does have a Damian Lillard chip where he wants to embarrass people and he competes on defense. He, like you said, he fits the MO, the identity of what that team is supposed to be. And I think, and I'm hoping that he's going to be one of those guys that for his entire career is real happy carrying the torch of being the guy in that small market and doesn't need to, quote unquote, sell out to go be part of a big market, big three somewhere.
Wouldn't that be nice? Right? Like that, yeah, to be like to have a Giannis in like Memphis.
Right.
To
or
have a
Dirk in
dude,
Dallas. Yeah.
Or Dirk in Dallas. Like a dude is just like, I don't have to, we could do, it would obviously help if they could have some kind of playoff success there, whether or not they win a title or just get close. It would be, maybe a Western Conference final. And this team might be set up to do that this year, to make a run for the Western Conference finals.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. They are the proverbial team that you do not want to face on any given night because they're going to work you. They're going to work you.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. If and I don't have a favorite team in the Western Conference, but if Memphis was on that list, I'd be like, hate that night. Do not want that at all. Let me then ask you who you think at this point is the most valuable player.
Let me give you my field first and then the pick. In the conversation, Steph Curry's got to be there right now. DeMar DeRozan has to be there right now with as much impact as he's had for the Bulls. He's carried
that team and flat out won some games recently.
Yeah.
In the closing seconds. And again, been sort of the central piece of that Chicago Bulls run right now.
The reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic, has to be there because somehow the Nuggets are still afloat and they have even more injury issues this year than last year.
And his numbers are stupid. Yes.
His numbers are flat out stupid. You talk about somebody who is so integral to what his team does. That's Jokic to a T. He is keeping that team afloat. Giannis is the same way in Milwaukee. You can make the argument about whether he's had more help or less help this year. Brook Lopez has not played. Drew Holiday's been in and out of the lineup. Chris Middleton's been in and out of the lineup. So, but you made the point too that everybody's kind of had the revolving door. So he's there. I think the guy for me, especially because he's been overlooked the last 2 years, and Giannis was deserving when he got it. Jokic was deserving when he got it. But at some point, I want to dap Kevin Durant up and give him one more MVP for being the rock solid, unstoppable scorer who has kept Brooklyn through their revolving door of distractions and injuries and COVID and slow starts by certain guys and all of that stuff. Durant has been the constant, and he's leading the league in scoring, by a full point per game. So for me, it's Durant right now. I think he's deserving. And I get mad when the narrative game about the future gets played too much, and so I'm being hypocritical when I do this, but I also see more MVPs in Jokic and Antetokounmpo's future as a possibility. Steph has gotten his stuff. I just feel like now is the time to recognize Durant for what he's done. I don't know how long he will do this into the future,
Well, he's like 34 or something now, right? Like he's like 33, 34. Like he's been in the league since like 06, 07.
He's 33. Yep.
33. Yes.
So number 2 in 2007.
Like there are so many good players behind him that if he takes half a step back, you're gonna have all the chance in the world to like start dapping up, as you say, all these other players like the Trae Youngs, the Jokic. Like they're gonna have time to keep like Durant. I go back to watching that game against the Bulls several weeks ago, and it was sort of a microcosm of what we saw until sort of James Harden finally got going like 2 weeks later. Was that he literally was all their offense. Whenever they needed a bucket, they went to Kevin Durant. Whenever he felt like they had to have something to stop the other team's momentum, he was the guy that had it. And everybody knew on the other team. Everybody on the other side knew Kevin Durant was going to get the ball, and he was still putting up 35s, 40s, 42s in games. And you're like, you can't stop this guy right now. Like there's just he's on a different level, I think, than everybody else so far this season. Now, James Harden has come on in the last few weeks to sort of help him a little bit with some of the scoring load. Obviously, Kyrie coming back is going to be a big help on some of these road games. And again, the guy that led this team to being, at the top of the, well, not at the top, but near the top of the Eastern Conference right now, it's Kevin Durant. He's not even kept the team afloat. He's helped them flourish. I'm with you. I think Kevin Durant's my guy right now. I think Kevin Durant's my guy. And then number 2, I'd probably give it to Jokic myself. But that just because, like, I'm a numbers queen, right? Like, I love seeing, like, all of these, like what Jokic is doing in the quiet of Denver, right? And just with the team not nearly as not performing nearly as well as a lot of people thought Denver would be this reason, for several reasons. The fact that we can still see numbers like this from Nikola Jokic it's silly. It's silly. So when you talk about value to a team, I think those two are the two clearly most valuable to their team.
I agree, and I feel DeMar DeRozan is not going to get the MVP, but you almost have to give him first team All NBA this year and recognize him in that way. If he's not going to get MVP, I don't know if he will, because again, there's so many good players in the Eastern Conference. I feel like he can. It's probably more likely that DeRozan winds up second team All NBA and still yet again is kind of overlooked, as he has been in his career. But can't say enough about what he's been able to do and fitting in there. But we also got to give dap to Zach LaVine for maturing clearly, for the help that he's gotten from Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso and Nick Vucevic being healthy. Like, it is a team thing going on there, and good coaching as well. But give DeRozan as many roses as he can
like
here.
Threes made a game, right? Like he's having a great year. Like the Bulls team's put together. You and I talked about it before the season. We liked the way the team looked. We just didn't know how it was going to look when he finally put it on the court. And they rolled the ball out there, and it's really worked together really nicely. And that's credit to those guys and to Billy Donovan.
It's looking more sustainable than I even thought 3 weeks ago, right? That's been my big question of, is this sustainable for this team? And the bench is doing just enough. And I am that big believer, as I've said over and over, you get 1-2 more veterans to help at the deadline, and you got something that is very, very dangerous in the Eastern Conference this year.
You think Chicago's active at the deadline?
I would think they have to be. I think you look at what you've got. You've got a career year out of DeRozan. He is 32. Nick Vucevic isn't young anymore. LaVine is still young, and those guards are. Kobe White's had a really nice impact for them off the bench now that he's healthy. But they are short at the wings a little bit, at the forward spots. A lot of that is Patrick Williams getting hurt. So you add another body or two in there, not somebody who's going to rock the boat, but somebody who's another gap filler, who's going to play good defense, make the right play, knock down some shots. His name is Harrison Barnes. He plays for the Sacramento Kings. He's probably very available at the deadline. Like, that's your guy, Chicago. Go get him.
I don't know what you're talking about with anybody being available from Sacramento right now. By the way, things aren't great in Sacramento right now. We don't need to get deep into
this.
It
Just in breaking.
Things haven't gotten a lot better for who was the interim? Alvin Gentry, right? Alvin Gentry becoming the interim there. So, okay, my final award that I think we need to give out right now. It's my favorite one. It's not officially recognized by the National Basketball Association of America.
Oh, so here while I've been prepping in the background for Defensive Player of the Year.
I'll get to that, but this is my favorite one.
All right.
Most disappointing team in the NBA thus far.
I mean, big market will tell you it's the Lakers, but we kind of saw this coming as a possibility, so they would not be my pick. My pick.
If you pick the Knicks, I'm going to punch you. Just gonna be
No,
honest
there's
with you.
dishonorable mention given to the Portland Trailblazers, but we
Okay.
also thought that there was the possibility the bottom could fall out for them, and it has. I think the one by default is the Atlanta Hawks. How are they 5 games under 500 at this point? They are by far the most disappointing team, not only because yours truly picked them for a top 2 seed, top 3 seed in the East, somewhere there, but because everybody thought this is that team on the rise, and yet they have fallen into that proverbial trap that we also talked about, where a young team comes out, they overachieve, they look really ready, and they get all the press clippings during an off season, and they come out flat the following year. They take a step back before they can take a step forward. We see that in baseball all the time. We see that in the NFL from time to time. It is a basketball thing too, and it is absolutely the Hawks' MO this year.
In the last 6 games, I think 6 games, the Hawks have given up, or the last 7 games, the Hawks have given up 130 points or more 4 times.
I know they've had some injury issues, but they had injury issues last year too.
Yeah,
and on paper, they are way too freaking talented for this to be happening. And again, you look at the impact that Nate McMillan had, and now he's got a contract extension, and there's going to be some questions about what was smoke and mirrors with that. And is it just some of the young guys maybe took their hands off the rope a little bit and said, hey, we're really good. We'll show up. We'll have a fun off season and, bask in the fact that we're on our rise. And I don't know. It's impossible to say, but they have not looked right all year. And you're starting to get into a point where you go, you got to turn this around soon because you don't have an identity right now other than being disappointing.
That's kind of rude. It hurts my heart because, again, like I was also one of the guys that was so high on them. But I've watched probably 3 or 4 full Hawks games this season. I don't get it. Like I don't get what's missing. I don't understand. And I think that's what hurts my heart the most is that I can't just be like, well, it's this, it's that, it's clearly the injury issue. It's clearly they're bad. They're borderline bad a lot this season. And it's been, like you said, from the very beginning. It's not like a bad stretch of games. Like they put up some dogs of games a lot, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Even with their injuries, Atlanta is more talented than Cleveland, Toronto, Charlotte,
Absolutely.
Washington, Boston, and New York. The teams that are sitting ahead of them and standing 6 through 11. They have more talent on that roster than any of those teams, and kudos to those other teams for using what they got better than Atlanta has done. It's just a waste, and you hit the nail on the head. I don't know why this is, but they don't get stops. Atlanta does not get stops. They have not been in sync defensively all year, whether that's a Nate McMillan problem, a focus problem. On paper, it should not be a personnel problem because this is basically the same personnel they had last year and a healthier version of that slightly than what they had last season. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, let's rapid fire some of these since obviously you've done the research. Yep. I do not want to waste the research. I do have an opinion on a couple of these official awards, but let's start with you mentioned Defensive Player of the Year, so let's start with Defensive Player of the Year. You have whom?
I don't know. It's such an open field. Here's my nominees. I couldn't pick one. For the guards, it's DeJounte Murray. It's Alex Caruso. Maybe Marcus Smart gets thrown in there, but let's be real. The guards rarely get Defensive Player of the Year. So then you're looking at who is averaging a block, a couple of blocks, and a steal. That's a very short list. Jaren Jackson Jr. might be my dark horse right now. He's the only guy out of the list averaging 2 blocks and a steal per game. Miles Turner is up near 3 blocks per game, but again, the Pacers just haven't been good. So can I really reward that? Rudy Gobert gets to be on the list because he's Rudy Gobert. Robert Williams has been really, really solid for Boston, but again, that's a middling, somewhat disappointing team. Giannis is on there. He was my guy that I picked at the beginning of the season. If he's not going to get MVP, you might give it to him. My other dark horse besides Jaren Jackson Jr. is Evan Mobley, the rookie.
Evan Mobley,
really disruptive.
Evan Mobley. Oh well, we'll get to no Draymond Green as far as Defensive Player of the Year.
No, not yet.
Steve Kerr is the best defender in the world. Do you say Steve Kerr's a liar?
Yes,
I think he's in the world. Yeah.
Give me some more games of Draymond and give me closer to the end of the season. The moral of the story is it's a wide open field this year with a lot of really deserving candidates and no clear-cut guy yet.
Rookie of the year, you mentioned him. I think it's Evan Mobley so far. What do you think?
Oddly enough, there's so many people and writers who are talking about Franz Wagner from the Magic, and Wagner has looked very NBA ready, way more NBA ready than any of us would have predicted. The kid can play. It just feels like a guy who's very NBA ready, and we're already seeing him at his peak, that he's going to be a solid starter, smart player. Do you give somebody Rookie of the Year for that on such a horrifically bad Orlando Magic team? I don't know, because it's not like he's lighting the world on fire statistically. He's just been very good. So yeah, to me, it might be Mobley because of how good the Cavaliers have been unexpectedly. And Mobley, I mean, from day one, like he was coming off the bench, and within 2 or 3 games of the season, they had to put him in the starting lineup because he looked that good. Scotty Barnes was going to get some dap, and now has been hurt a little bit.
He's averaging like 15 a game. Like he's played pretty well for Toronto.
Oddly enough, Jalen Green not in the conversation at all because he hasn't played a bunch. Cade Cunningham took a while to get going, and even he has been up and down. So your top 2 front runners are not there. So I think for me, it's a toss up right now between Mobley and the fact that the Cavaliers are so solid, and maybe Wagner because, again, the eyeball test and the number test doesn't lie. The kid can play, and that's a surprise to a lot of people. But Mobley's going to be the better player overall, and he might be the better
most
player
surprising
right now.
player, or is the Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, so I'll go with Mobley just a little bit. If Wagner got it at this point, I would say that's more of a referendum on the fact that this rookie class has been solid but not spectacular.
You scoffed at this name earlier. 6th man of the year. I'll tell you the name if you haven't mentioned it.
Go for it.
Tyler Hero.
I don't scoffing, hate it.
You're just not believing it.
Yeah, I don't.
Give me who you got.
I'm going through my list here mentally. Help me, NBC Sports Edge. I don't know. I didn't really pick one, and that's on me. I didn't pick one coming into this for them, but who would I otherwise
So let's say Tyler Hero, because I think that's the clear choice. Tyler Hero is the best.
Give me your rationale. It's going to buy me some time for a rebuttal. Give me your choice of why you're going with him, because Desmond Bane is the guy who comes to mind, but he's started a lot of games for Memphis this year.
Well, so for me, it's the 6th man. It's simple. It's a guy who is essentially the closest guy you think could be a starter, and also could sort of give you a spark of offense, essentially, or defensive. Like if it's one of these crazy turnover getting guys, he's not necessarily that, but he is a really good shooter. He's a spark when he comes off the bench, and I think he's an exciting player. I think he's integral to Miami. I'm going to say being great right now, but helping to keep them afloat when they, like everyone else, has had their issues. But I think Tyler Hero is a good 6th man of the year candidate. I was trying to think of how Patty Mills is on that list, right? Patty Mills comes off the bench.
Patty Mills is there. I think the overall stats might not be. The 2 guys, now that I stopped and gathered my thoughts on it, the 2 guys who come to mind who got to be in the running, Jordan Clarkson for Utah, super integral to what they do, and a dark horse who is on the rise because he's just playing super well right now, even though his team is not, Anthony Simons for the Blazers. Keep an eye on him because I think he's going to be in that conversation before too long. But you're right.
Tyler Hero's averaging like 21 a game.
Hero's got the name recognition. Terrence Ross always does good things off the bench and plays a load of minutes, but again, the Magic suck, so he's not gonna get the dap that he deserves for that. So no, I don't hate the pick.
You just don't like the guy. I get it. You're a hater.
I'm just wondering if it's him by default at this point. But look
default because he's good. Like not default because like he's the most recognizable name of this. I mean, I guess you could argue him or Jordan Clarkson as far as recognizable. I don't know. I don't know what the Q rating would be of.
Here's the other guy. Here's the other guy who's going to get a mention in this is Kevin Love. Love has played really, really well for Cleveland coming off the bench. And we don't want to give it to him because of how much he's mailed in the last couple of seasons. Like literally sent it to the post office with too many stamps. But like
he's averaging 14 and 7. He's not terrible as far as like a guy to throw in there for you. 14 and 7 in just 21 minutes of action he's averaging. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And been integral to like just coming in and doing his job and filling that role. But again, yeah, I don't hate the hero pick.
All right. Do you have another award before I put you on the spot for something you may not have prepared for?
No, let's do it.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't have any other awards. I mean, we could talk most improved player, but we'll get to that down the line. It's Anthony Edwards, but anyway.
Of course, you gotta get a Timberwolf in there somehow.
Gotta.
Anthony Edwards has been really good, really like
scary good,
like special good. Yeah. Like he's been. I don't know. I do root for the Timberwolves to be better, and they have been better so far this year. Right? It seems like a team taking a step, right? Like whenever they can be able to take a step, but this feels like.
They also have gotten to play the Thunder twice, the Rockets,
and
tonight they play the Pelicans. So
come on, the Pelicans just beat. I just mentioned it. The Pelicans just beat somebody that they
beat Golden State, but
Golden
it was
State.
the Golden State JV team. So
it counts. It counts. Remember, Joe, what did we say on the show? When you're healthy and the other team's not, you got to take advantage of these games.
Absolutely.
Even if you're 21 games back in the division or the conference. Where are the Pelicans in the standings? They are
not good. They're third to the bottom and
14 and 26, 16 and a half back of first place. But again, they're not mathematically eliminated yet.
3.5 ahead of the Houston Rockets.
So. That's so good.
They've doubled up the Magic in wins, so you can take that to the bank.
It's clear the two worst teams in the NBA are in the East. Like they're just and like it's.
I'm going to be going to see both of them, not against each other, thank God. But I got Pistons Timberwolves coming at the beginning of next month, and then Grizzlies Magic coming up in March.
Let me see the Pistons and the Pistons just played the Magic.
They did
on Saturday, and
the world was not obliterated by an asteroid when it happened.
I completely forgot that game happened. Oh, that's pathetic. Okay.
All right. You've got one more thing. I know we've got to get going here. You've got one more.
My one more thing is thank you for your time, Joel.
Okay.
I really appreciate your time. The coach of the year is clearly Tom Thibodeau. I don't know. I don't want to talk about the Knicks. It's fine. We don't always.
Hey, we went almost $1.15 in this episode, so it was good and plenty. Thanks, Drew Gooden, for giving us episode number 90.
What do you have against Kemba Walker? What does he do? What do you hate about Kemba? Like, did he come onto your wife?
What do I hate about Kemba, or what does Tom Thibodeau hate about Kemba? I don't hate Kemba.
Oh, I forgot you were here. I thought Tom Thibodeau came in. Like this is me staring at my monthly my league pass like every time I get to watch them. Oh, by the way, they were like on TNT or something the night before.
I just love how much this has flipped for you because last season, and actually the last two seasons when Kemba was in Boston, you're like, something's wrong. You were so anti-Kemba. And now that he's a Knick, you're like, free Kemba.
Because they're literally not playing him. They're like the Celtics would at least play him like, I mean, not two ends, not like on both ends of a back-to-back or something, but like they would just never tell you, hey, his knee's messed up. Or like he's not the same. The Knicks got him for super cheap. He comes in, he plays pretty well when he's in because everybody's out with COVID. And the Tom Thibodeau said, you're lucky that I almost didn't have a roster. That's why you're playing. You're lucky you didn't get COVID because if you did, I wouldn't play you. I wouldn't even
fire Tom Thibodeau, promote Kemba to player coach. Problem solved.
I still understand. When you score, what do they score against the Celtics? Like 70 points against the Celtics? Anybody. Okay.
Spotify, Spreaker, iTunes. That's where you get the audio version of Basketball by Association. Find us on YouTube, like, share, subscribe if you want the video version as well.
I don't want to admit that you're right about Thibodeau. I don't want to admit that you're right. I don't.
You don't have to. I mean, history will prove me right. That's fine.
And I'll never acknowledge history.
Don't look up.